Now something about this situation does not add up. This is Offset, a man who had money, influence, and a global superstar wife in Cardi B, now being seen outside in a wheelchair wearing hospital socks, looking like everything around him gave out at once. That alone would raise questions, but the explanation being pushed makes it harder to ignore because people are tying this to gambling issues, possible debts, and incidents inside casinos, yet at the same time, everything is unfolding in full view. Every image is clear, every moment is visible, and nothing about it feels private. And that is where the situation starts to shift, because when something looks this exposed, you have to ask what the purpose is. There are rumors involving Lil Tjay, talk about money owed, and questions about what really happened during that altercation. But none of that fully explains why this is happening so publicly. And then there is the part that changes everything. Cardi is completely silent, no response, no defense, no reaction. When someone who used to stand by you through everything suddenly says nothing, that usually means something already broke behind the scenes. So now the real question is whether this is actually rock bottom happening in front of everyone, or if this is one last move before everything slips for good. And once you start asking that, the entire situation stops looking random. Most people are looking at this and thinking it is simple. Bad decisions, bad habits, and everything finally catching up. That explanation sounds easy, but it does not fully explain what is happening here. Because situations like this usually unfold behind the scenes, not in front of everyone. When someone at this level starts losing control, they disappear first. They go quiet, avoid attention, and handle things privately until things stabilize. That is how damage gets contained. But this is moving in the opposite direction. Every image is circulating, every moment is visible, and every detail is being discussed in real time. That is not how someone hides a problem. That is how attention becomes part of the situation. And once you recognize that, the entire narrative starts to shift. Because now it is not just about rumors of gambling or whatever happened inside that casino. It becomes about timing. All of this is unfolding while Cardi B is at one of the highest points of her career, focused and moving forward without him. That contrast is too clear to ignore. On one side, everything is rising and controlled. On the other, everything looks unstable at the same time. And when those two paths run side by side, it stops feeling like coincidence and starts looking like a turning point. Because this is not just a fall from grace. This is what it looks like when control starts slipping in real time. And once control starts slipping, what comes next usually exposes how deep the problem really goes.
Cardi B says she was reborn after her split from ex Offset. In a new interview on the Aspire with Emma Grede podcast, the rapper explains how she was transformed personally.
At the center of all of this is a problem that did not start today. This has been building over time, and now it is reaching a point where it can no longer stay contained. Because when you start connecting the pieces, the pattern becomes harder to ignore. There have been repeated rumors about money issues, talk of gambling, and questions about how situations inside casinos escalated to the point where things turned physical. Then you add in the alleged altercation involving Lil Tjay, and now it is not just about finances anymore. It becomes about pressure building from multiple directions at once, because when money, reputation, and personal relationships all start tightening at the same time, people do not move carefully, they react, and those reactions usually reveal how serious things really are. At the same time, there is no stability coming from his personal life. The situation with Cardi B has already gone through years of tension, breakups, and public moments, but this feels different. There is no visible support, no public defense, and no sign that anything is being repaired behind the scenes. Instead, everything points to distance. That combination is what anchors the situation. This is not just a public image issue or a temporary setback. This is what it looks like when multiple areas start breaking down at once. Financial pressure, public scrutiny, and personal separation are all hitting at the same time. And when that happens, the situation does not stay contained. It spreads. And once it spreads, the next phase is where the pressure starts turning into real consequences. And this is where the pressure starts turning into real consequences. Because once everything is already unstable, it does not take much for the situation to escalate. It only takes one moment for things to move from tension into something that brings real attention. That moment looks like the casino situation, because now this is no longer just rumors or online talk. This is something that reportedly turned into a physical altercation. And in a place like that, it does not matter who started it. Any kind of fight immediately brings rules, security, and legal attention into the picture. Now add Lil Tjay into that situation, and it becomes even more visible. Because once another public figure is involved, the story does not stay contained. It spreads faster, and it reaches more people. Opinions start forming before the full details are even clear, and different versions of the story begin circulating at the same time. That is where the tension increases, because now it is not just about what actually happened, it is about how it is being interpreted. Every detail gets amplified, every rumor moves faster, and every action starts carrying more weight than it normally would. At the same time, there is still no response from Cardi B. No statement, no visible support, nothing that slows the narrative down. And that absence only adds more pressure to everything that is already building.
Professionally, after filing for divorce from the Migos alum in 2024, following their on-again, off-again romance through the years.
I don't know if it was like the divorce, or I don't know if something just woke me up, and I feel like I'm definitely a new person.
So now the situation is no longer one issue. It is multiple pressures stacking at once. Public attention, conflict, and unanswered questions are all rising together. And once that kind of momentum starts, it becomes very difficult to control where it goes next. And when it reaches that point, the impact starts becoming visible in ways that are harder to ignore. And this is where the impact starts becoming visible in a way that cannot be ignored. Because once everything escalates in public, it does not stay as speculation. It begins to affect how people see you, how they respond to you, and what starts shifting around you. Right now, the image is changing. This is Offset, someone who was once associated with success, influence, and stability, now being discussed in terms of problems, setbacks, and whether he is actually losing control. The conversation is no longer centered around music or business. It is focused on what is going wrong. And at that level, perception drives everything. Because once people start associating your name with instability, the environment around you begins to shift. Opportunities become uncertain, partnerships become quieter, and the support that once felt automatic starts pulling back. At the same time, there is no balance coming from his personal life. The distance from Cardi B is still there, and there is no sign of that connection stabilizing anything behind the scenes. Instead of support, there is separation, and that reinforces the idea that things are not being managed. That is how the consequences spread. It moves from one situation into a full shift in perception. And once that shift takes hold, recovery becomes harder because now it is not about fixing one issue, it is about rebuilding how everything is seen. And when that kind of pressure builds, it does not stop there. It starts affecting the people around you as well. And this is where the situation starts affecting the people around him. Because once perception shifts, the energy around you changes with it. The same people who were once visible, supportive, and present begin to move differently. Not always in obvious ways, but you can see it in what is no longer there. Support becomes quieter. The people who used to stand next to you during difficult moments are no longer stepping in the same way. That is not random. That is distance forming in real time. You can see it most clearly in the silence from Cardi B. Because before, no matter what was going on, there was always a reaction, always a defense, always some form of presence. Now there is nothing. And that absence carries more weight than anything that could be said publicly. At the same time, the public starts shifting as well. The tone changes. What used to be support turns into criticism, jokes, and speculation. And once that switch happens, it spreads quickly because people follow the direction of the narrative. That is what makes this stage different. It is not just about what happened, it is about how people are responding to it.
Cardi filed for divorce from Offset in 2020 before moving to dismiss the case. In 2024, rep for Cardi confirmed to E! News that she had once again moved to end their marriage, telling E! At the time, it has been a long time coming.
And once both the personal circle and the public begin pulling back at the same time, the situation becomes harder to stabilize. Because now it is not just about managing one problem, it is about dealing with the loss of support that once helped hold everything together. And once that support starts disappearing, the situation becomes even harder to control, which is where the next shift begins. And this is where the next shift begins. Because once support starts disappearing, what replaces it is information coming from inside. At this level, things do not stay contained. Details start leaking, people start talking, and those voices begin shaping the narrative in a way that is much harder to control. Now you have statements and accusations coming from Lil Tjay, and that changes how everything is being viewed. Because when someone directly involved starts speaking publicly, the story moves from speculation into something people treat as confirmation, whether it is fully verified or not. And that adds another layer of pressure. Because now it is not just about actions, it is about how those actions are being described. Labels start forming, and once those labels attach themselves, they are difficult to remove. At the same time, there is no strong pushback from Offset to redirect the narrative. No clear denial, no structured response, nothing that resets the conversation. And when there is no response, people fill in the gaps themselves. That is how the situation evolves. It moves from incidents into accusations, and from accusations into reputation damage that spreads faster than the original event. And once insider voices begin shaping the story, it carries more weight than anything else being said. And that is when the situation stops being contained to individuals and starts expanding into something much bigger. And this is where the situation expands into something much bigger. Because once a story reaches this level, it is no longer just about one person or one incident. It becomes about how the entire system around it reacts. Now the narrative is spreading across platforms, discussions, and media coverage, and each version adds another layer. People are analyzing behavior, revisiting past situations, and connecting details that were not being discussed before. What started as a single moment is now turning into a broader storyline. At the same time, the industry begins adjusting, because when someone's image shifts this quickly, the people connected to that image start reassessing their position. Collaborations become uncertain, associations become quieter, and the distance becomes more noticeable even if it is not openly addressed. That creates another level of pressure, because now it is not just about personal issues or public perception, it is about how the entire system responds. And once that system starts pulling back, it creates a ripple effect that impacts everything connected to it. So now the situation is no longer isolated. It has expanded into something where public opinion, industry response, and ongoing narratives are all feeding into each other at the same time.
As a result, Cardi, who shares kids' culture, Wave, and Blossom with Offset, as well as a 4-month-old baby with Stefon Diggs, was more motivated than ever to lock in professionally, even taking cues from other stars in building her own empire, including her new beauty line, Grow Good Beauty.
And once it reaches that level, controlling it becomes significantly harder, which is where the situation starts to feel like there is no clear way out. And this is where the situation starts to feel like there is no clear way out, because once everything reaches this level, there are no easy options left. Every move carries weight, and every decision gets analyzed from every angle. At this point, anything Offset does becomes part of the narrative. If he speaks, people question the timing and the intention. If he stays silent, people assume the worst and fill in the gaps themselves. There is no neutral position anymore. At the same time, everything around him continues moving. The rumors, the accusations, the public perception, and the industry response are all happening at once. And when everything is connected like that, it becomes difficult to isolate one issue and fix it. There is also no visible support stepping in to stabilize things. No strong ally shifting the conversation, no presence redirecting attention, nothing that creates space for a reset. That is what makes this stage different. It is not just about things going wrong. It is about being in a position where every move adds pressure and every delay makes the situation heavier. Because once it reaches this point, it starts to feel locked in, like the narrative is continuing forward whether it can be controlled or not. And when it feels like there is no clear exit, that is when the next move usually becomes more desperate. And when it feels like there is no clear exit, that is when the next move usually becomes more desperate. Because once someone runs out of controlled options, the decisions that follow start to look more reactive than strategic. Now people are questioning whether this visibility is intentional, whether these public appearances and moments being captured are part of an attempt to shift how the situation is being seen. Because when everything else is working against you, attention can start to feel like the only tool left. But that creates another problem. Because if this is an attempt to gain sympathy or redirect the narrative, it has to compete with everything that has already been established. The rumors, the casino incident, the accusations involving Lil Tjay, all of that is already shaping how people interpret what they are seeing. At the same time, there is still no visible response from Cardi B. No acknowledgement, no engagement, nothing that suggests this is having the intended effect. That is what makes this stage uncertain. Because now it is not just about reacting to problems, it is about making moves that may not actually change anything. And when those moves fail to shift the narrative, it creates even more uncertainty about what happens next, which is where everything begins to come apart at once. And this is where everything begins to come apart at once. Because once the pressure reaches this level, it does not stay contained to one area. It spreads across everything at the same time. Now the image, the reputation, and the personal life are all being affected together.
She says a lot of artists or celebrities that have really big, major businesses that are successful, they didn't build their brand on the second or third year of being big celebrities. They built their brand when they were 7 to 8 to 10 years in the business, and I feel like right now is the perfect time. She adds, I'm 33 years old. This is the year. It's like God is telling me it's gonna be now or never. Take advantage of it.
This is Offset, someone who once had structure, influence, and stability, now being discussed in terms of decline and loss of control. That shift is significant, and it changes how everything is viewed. The public perception has already moved. The narrative is no longer about success or growth, it is about downfall. And once that narrative takes hold, every new detail reinforces it. At the same time, there is still distance from Cardi B. No visible support, no indication that anything is being repaired behind the scenes, nothing that suggests stability is coming back. Instead of balance, everything feels disconnected. And when all of that happens together, it creates a full collapse moment. Not one issue, but multiple layers failing at once. Reputation, relationships, and public image are all shifting in the same direction. And at this stage, it is no longer about whether things are going wrong. It is about how much can actually be recovered once everything has already started falling apart. And when everything reaches that point, what is left is not a resolution, but a question. And when everything reaches that point, what is left is not a resolution, but a question. Because at this stage, there is no clear ending that ties everything together. What remains is a situation still unfolding, with too many moving parts to predict how it will turn out. On one side, this could be exactly what it looks like, a real fall driven by pressure, decisions, and everything catching up at once. And if that is the case, then the outcome depends on whether Offset can regain control and rebuild what has already been lost. But on the other side, there is still the part that does not fully add up. Why is all of this happening so publicly? And why does it feel like every moment is being seen at the same time? Because if any part of this is intentional, then the outcome depends on whether it actually works. And that brings everything back to the one constant throughout this entire situation. The silence from Cardi B. No response, no involvement, no indication that anything is changing on that side. So now the situation remains open. Not fully resolved, not fully understood, and still developing in real time. And the only real question left is whether this is the point where everything starts turning around, or the moment where it continues going in the same direction.